Bring back on Mr. Waller. I'll wait for him to come on. So apologies there for anyone listening. We were just going live with Tom Waller over in Lincoln, and I don't know what happened with our internet connection, but one of us went down. It's a problem, isn't it? When you rely on technology as we do so, sometimes it messes up. So hopefully Tom can join us. I think he's going to be back on in just a second. Really, really good stuff today, guys. We're going to be talking about the spine, chiropractic, and all things that can be helpful to people. Here we go. Dun, 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 dun. There he is.
One of the beauties of living in Lincolnshire is it's the middle of nowhere, so it's probably my signal that went down, so I do apologise. I'm back.
I thought we had some logarithms watching us, and thinking we're going to be doing conspiracies and shutting us down there for a second. So Tom, before we lost each other, what I was going to say to you, what I was asking you was, how do you think most people view their spine?
It's a brilliant question. It's a great one to start because I think most people don't even view their spine at all. Anatomically, the way that we are set up is our eyes face forward and our spine faces backwards. So, people pay no attention. People will look down and pay attention to their stomach, and people will pay attention to their arms and their hands and how their body's moving, but people seldom pay attention to their spine. And that can leave us quite unstuck sometimes when we really understand how crucial the spine is to the ultimate health of the whole body. So, to be honest, I don't think people really pay much attention to their spine. And it's not necessarily their fault or that they're ignorant. It is simply down to the anatomical way that we are designed.
Yep. I just popped in an email to our clients yesterday how my reflections thoughts of the week was just the fact that we take so much of it for granted. And I think, there's nothing wrong in that. That's human nature, that we just naturally, our body is so intelligent, we're so well constructed, unless unlucky you have a genetic default, that things just work well. And in school, we just taught that our spines are scaffolding, so it holds us up. But let's head into the brain-body link. So let's actually go into what is the spine and it's the role it plays in the body. I'll let you do that. You take this one, Dr. Tom.
Okay, let's go. So, if I was to say to you, what does your skull do? And most people would turn around and say, well, my skull protects my beyond how we move. What does the brain do? Controls every cell, tissue, and organ of the body. How does the brain get that message to the body is the next question. Well, obviously, it's got to send that message to the body somehow, and then it's down through our spinal cord and out through all the nerves that run through it. So the brain-body connection is important from this way down, but I'm a big proponent, and one of the things I really do teach and work people with is the fact that when the body moves, the brain grooves. So there's this symbiotic relationship as well, because as much as your brain is telling your body to work, your brain would starve and wouldn't work if the body wasn't moving to give it life. So there's this really beautiful symbiotic relationship between the brain and the body. And the spine is the linchpin, is the thing that connects the two of them together. So it's essential and ultimately fundamental to create our expression of life.
Yeah. And let's break it down a little bit, because I think people get, it's easy. I wouldn't know if I hadn't studied anatomy so intensely, that the spine, we're not just talking about a set of bones, right? And this is the thing, I think we're so used to separating things in life, like my skin to this shirt, that we, to think that a numbers of our anatomy work together can be a little bit strange to some people. So we're talking about spine, it's one of those 24 movable vertebrae. The fused vertebra below that, the cranium that sits on top of that, our skull, all the different bones within the cranium that we know do have micromotion, some more than others, including the mandible, which moves a lot. All those tissues within the spinal cord, the nerves, the spinal cord itself, the brain and the skull, and they're not separated. They're intrinsically linked, aren't they, and working together.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like to simplify, and I tell people to think of their spine like a tea towel. You pick up a tea towel in the kitchen, if you started to twist the top of it, what would happen to the rest of it? It would begin to spiral and change as well. So it's super important that we understand that there's a relationship between the whole spine. You can't move one area without moving the other area. One of the parts of the spine that is so prevalent is right at the top, the atlas bone. So you've got your skull, quite simplified, your skull, this cradle that sits on top of your spine. And the first part of your spine it sits on is that atlas bone, that top little bone of which the spinal cord is running through. That atlas bone actually attaches to the spinal cord. So the spinal cord doesn't run just straight through your spine, suspended without touching it. It's actually coordinated by movement of the spine. These tiny little ligaments called the dentate that look like teeth are attaching our spine to our spinal cord. So everything is attached, everything is working together, and you have an amalgamation of soft and firm structures such as the bones of the spine as well as the soft tissues. But when you really think about it and you go inside a human, that everything is soft. The bone is soft, although it's firmer in context, it's still soft. It was really interesting. You started there, and I'm appreciative of who our audience is, because you talked about the separation of your skin from your shirt. But we could really get into the realms of, there is no separation between anything in this world, which is a great sort of focal point we might go into in terms of how you actually, work with the spine and the functions of the human body. But I fear I go down a rabbit hole.
That's
in a second,
something, yeah, definitely. So let's go from the basic to the advanced. So let's chunk it down from the macro and then go quantum. So what lies beneath the surface, most people are shocked when I even talk about spinal fluid. For people that don't know, people are saying, there's apparently about 50 different licensed techniques in our profession. There's a huge amount of diversity between different techniques. Some people slightly firmer, some people extremely soft and very gentle tonal techniques. The ultimate thing is that they all work and they all have an extremely powerful impact, basically improving congruence and the way the body works. And, so I was telling someone the other day about spinal fluid and the different pumps sitting at the base of the spinal cord, the top of our brainstem and inside our brain, pumping and allowing hydration and nutrients going to our spinal cord. And most people don't know that you have that 150 milliliters of fluid and how easily, whether it be through a physical injury or an emotional stress, that the reflexive kind of part of our body, just like if someone, shocked you and you recoiled physically, being scared, that our spinal cord and our brain, as our essential organism or organ inside us, has a reflexive recoil and tension too. And that is within your back. So of course the coordination of all the structures, the muscles, the tissues, the bones on top of that, as we move with us. And the more we have those tensions, the more we build up distortions and adaptations in our body, which in chiropractic we call subluxations.
Yeah, it's really interesting. You see that, I certainly see it most with working with babies and young kids when they've had an insult or an injury, or sort of a chemical stressor. What you see is that their body becomes very rigid, and that starts with the spine, and the spine's not moving. And if you start to get the spine moving, you get a relaxation of all the muscles around the stomach, the face, the arms, and everything. Tonal drops. But again, it comes back down to the fact that control is all coming through the spine, through that nervous system, and energetically over and through all those nerves.
Yeah. So Tom, talk us through a little bit about how you like to practice and the things that you do.
Well, I like to work. It's really interesting. It's funny when we talk about chiropractic that you're right, there's so many different techniques. And the thing we have to understand that chiropractic is founded upon some very basic principles. That the human body is self-healing and self-regulating. The true cause of disease is disharmony within the body. And the work that I do is aiming to create more harmony within the body and work with an individual so that they can really best express and heal themselves. So the way I tend to work, I'm very energetic in the way I work. And what I mean by that is it's not just the act of laying my hands on an individual to create the change. We create a space and an environment for that change to happen too. So I have a community practice which essentially means that we have every member or aspect of the community come in to see us. We are working in an open environment, which means people are sitting in our chill out area. They're working with our team at the front desk. They're doing warm ups for their adjustment. They're getting adjusted all in this big, open, beautiful space that just increases everybody's vibrational tone. If we understand that the heart field, your heart field and the energy that you give out can extend 6 to 8 meters. If you've got a room full of people enjoying an experience, what does that do to everybody's energetic tone? It elevates it. So that when we come in then to do our adjustment, which is physically moving the spine and removing or attempting to correct these subluxations, there's more energy in the whole ecosystem to enable that to happen. So the way I work is if you break it down, it's a physical movement of an adjustment. I'm a physical adjuster, but I create an energetic environment to allow that to happen. And I suppose the other thing that I really am important and key on is being true to that doctor title, which is the teacher, and giving people everything that they need to help themselves through the process too. Yeah,
thanks. Yeah, I love it. And anyone that's interested, check out Epoch Lincoln, and Tom has some great videos about the work that he does too. I think it'd be really inspiring for people too, because as I said, there's so much diversity in the way that people work. And something I was explaining to someone the other day is, I know we could delve really deep into chiropractic, and that's on the spinal, health side of things. But if we just strip it back into just being human, too, some people don't have chiropractic care. Some people never have. It hasn't been around forever, and so there's been different names of similar modalities and things that have been used in the body too in the past, and similar techniques. Some people say that if you were a Tibetan monk and you're on top of a mountain meditating, that you'd meditate your spine out of stress anyway. What are the things that you think people could be doing and focusing on in their health, Tom, that would improve their spinal health and just actually improve their awareness that they even have a spine?
Great question. I suppose that your overall health is dictated by. For me, I believe health is, there's a simple construct of health. So the spine can get irritated by 3 things, and that is thoughts, traumas, and toxins: physical stress, chemical stress, and emotional stress. The issues with irritating the spine is because if the spine then gets irritated, it's going to change how the organism, the human being, is regulating, self-regulating, and self-healing. So we also have this strange interface, really, where you're right. If you do everything you can in life to improve physical stress, chemical stress, and emotional stress, then you shouldn't get the subluxations, or you could meditate your spine into perfect alignment. Whether or not I believe that, I'm not sure. I still believe that we should have our spine checked and assessed, because what it comes down to is that the spine really, and I think we bastardize it when we just focus on the spine. I think we really need to focus on what are we really working with, and that's the nervous system. And that is the energetic interface between thoughts, traumas, and toxins, the physical, chemical, and emotional stress, and how that actually then affects the cells within the body. So you can eat well, move well, you can think well, but you still end up having a health crisis. And what is the reason for that? And it's because this interface isn't putting the message through properly. So for instance, you've probably played Chinese whispers before, and you start off by saying one thing. it's a common thing in Jersey, isn't it? I know. But you start saying one thing, and eventually another message comes out the end. So I could be telling my body I'm moving well, I'm thinking well, I'm eating well, but why am I sick? Because that's not getting into the body. And the only way it can get into the body, every time you eat the food, you ingest it, the nervous system has to process that. Every time you think great thoughts, the nervous system has to process that. Every time you move your body, the nervous system has to process that. Yeah. So getting that nervous system to...
Sorry, carry on, Tom.
Well, and essentially it's getting that nervous system firing and functioning the best its ability is key. There's one other thing I'll go into in a minute, but you had a question, go for it.
No, I was just basically leaning and expanding on what you were saying, that, as a human, whether or not you have any genetic, changes in yourself, which creates dishealth from the get-go in life, we are living in an intelligent organism, in a field of intelligence in our body with cells, organs, tissues, a brain which is constructed and working very incredibly together. So, if you do have a genetic deformation creating dishealth from the beginning, that's unfortunate. But if you still create life and you continue to live, you live on with that. Your body is still intelligent. It still beats your heart. It pumps your lungs. You digest food. You create energy, etc. You can walk, talk, and live. But from the moment that we start in life, there's a bunch of interferences that you were just going into that starts to happen. And I think I try and break it down for people and make it as simple as possible, because, we know as chiropractors, most people come and see us, because neck pain, back pain and things. And people think, oh, you're the guy that can crack my neck and fix it for me. With, the 80-pound paracetamol, which, I completely get that, because if I didn't know what I know, I'd probably be in exactly the same thing. So I always try and educate people on what we're talking about, that, you're living in an intelligent body that is already adapting incredibly well to whatever stresses that we have, and we all have them. Like you said, posture, emotional stresses that we have, people that we don't like at home or in the office, too much coffee, too much alcohol, etc. That creates change and adaptation in the body. And these adaptations are not very healthy, but they don't have to create symptoms, right? So, only 80% of the body, only 20% of the nerves will actually end up creating symptoms. So, by the time you have the neck pain or back pain, your body's experienced and worked incredibly hard for you too, right?
Yeah, pain is an interesting concept, and the problem is we need tangibles in life to do it. I was talking to someone the other day, and I simply recommended he take some vitamin C. And it's an interesting concept. You take the vitamin C, but you never know whether it's working or not. Because you might not get sick, but how can you prove that you didn't get sick because you were taking the vitamin C? So, what we've done in life is we put things to try and prove a point. So pain is one of those constructs that we're saying it proves I'm feeling well or I'm feeling unwell. Pain is the proof. But that's the wrong way of looking at pain. You see, I work a lot for well-being with the police force and the fire service. So if you had if you had a fire going in your house and the alarms are going off and this big red fire truck pulls up, these big burly men with their yellow hats jump out, they run into your house, and they're just going to take all the batteries out of the alarms and then they leave. They just take the batteries out of the alarms and then they leave. Have they done their job? Most probably not. But they were addressing the annoyance. They were addressing the thing that told us something wasn't right. And if you just get rid of that annoyance or something that tells us that something's not right, you've not asked my favorite question and the most important question that we should be asking ourselves whenever we are sick or whenever we're told advice. I'm like the most annoying kid you've ever met. What do you think my favorite question is? Why? Why? Why do we get pain? Why have we got symptoms? Why is this expression of health or expression of ill health happening within my body? And if we ask the right question, then we can start to get the right answer. Most of us will just stick with the what, and that's when we go wrong.
Did you think one of the most important things someone could take away from this right now that's a member of the public, non-professional or professional to be honest, is that if you're experiencing symptoms in your body, to ask yourself why. If you're going to see a practitioner of any sort, you may be seeking the relief of symptoms, but to know that there's a cause behind that the symptoms you're experiencing are a gross effect of the adaptation and the changes that are occurring as a result of a stressor. You talked before about thoughts, traumas, and toxins, the 3 T's we know from our philosophy. We're the 2 T's, but that's the 3 T's of chiropractic. So I had to drop that in there. I put myself off there. I hate when
you did good. The 2 Toms is going viral. It's fine.
But go on, carry on.
Go on. So I just, you're absolutely right. But one of the big things I do with people is I work with value systems, and I really help people with their value system. This is aside from my practice with the coaching.
Yeah.
So we're in danger of impressing our values upon somebody else if we go down this rabbit hole. We're in danger of saying you should address the cause. Exactly.
Yeah.
But that their value system might be, I don't care. I just want to get out of pain. That's cool. Well, your value system, but I'm not the person to help you.
Yeah.
You know, if you just
And
want
then
to
the
get rid
thing
of
is,
pain,
though,
take a
is that,
pill or
Tom,
cut it
if
off.
you do actually end up helping their pain, and I completely appreciate this gets confusing for people, because as a practitioner, you might tell them, be like, look, I'm not going to address and focus on your pain. I'm going to focus on the cause and the adaptations that are occurring. I'm going to adjust that, and you're going to experience a better expression of your body. Your body's going to start working better. You may well experience less pain, and someone does. That can sometimes be confusing because on one hand, they thought you weren't going to address the pain, but then the pain went.
Yeah.
And I understand that, but that really is the fact that the amount of threshold of stress, tension, distortion, whatever you want to call it, subluxations in the body and in the spine starts to reduce, and the body experiences itself. It can talk to itself better. You've got better nerve communication between your brain and your tissues and your spine, and that's when the pain sensation drops. Sometimes the pain sensation doesn't drop. Sometimes it changes to a different type of sensation,
But
which is
again,
further
you've got to ask the
adaptation.
why question. If you haven't addressed or taught the why question at the start, then you're setting yourself up. And
Yeah.
chiropractors often they fail because they say I'm going to get someone out of pain, and then they celebrate their own success when someone gets out of pain.
Yeah. And I think that goes for
Whereas,
any practitioners, right? Chiro,
yeah, right,
osteo, physio,
exactly.
whatever. Yeah.
Because the celebration should be, well, great, you're out of discomfort now, but why? And then if they start to become back into discomfort, again, the question is back on the person. Why?
Yeah.
What have you done? Well, how has your life changed? What have you been focusing on? And again, we live in this world where if you hit your hammer on a nail, it goes in the wall. We just want physical for physical makes the difference. And oftentimes when people get really well through care, working with some kind of practitioner, and then they have a relapse, the relapse is, I'd say 90% of the time, an emotional relapse. It's emotional relapse that brings back the pain adaptation. Or you work with someone and you're helping their posture, and their posture isn't changing, yet you're doing all these exercises and adjustments, and they're like, well, why hasn't my posture changed? I said, well, are you caught in a state of stress? If I was to scare you in the street, what's the first thing your body would do? It would fall forwards. It would become defensive. Your head would come forwards. Your shoulders would round. This poor posture can be related to stress. It can be related to toxins. You know, if you're taking sugar in on a daily basis, every cell in your body is going to start releasing inflammatory cytokines, which means that your body's thinking it's under attack. And again, that poor posture forms. So unless you have that conversation, that honest conversation at the start, I'm not responsible for your health. I am not. But as a doctor, meaning teacher, I'm going to guide you on that journey how you can help yourself. Then we'll get the results that we're looking for.
Mm.
I just went
Nice,
off on
Tom.
one there, didn't
No,
I?
it's brilliant, and it's really useful. I think, a little home experiment from that to people is, I think the next time, self-awareness is key. Okay, I think whether you see a practitioner or if you don't, to have an awareness of your body is absolutely key. When you do something, if you enjoy an indulgent night, if you drink alcohol, if you have lots of foods that aren't particularly the healthiest, but they're tasty and you're having a good time, and we all know that feeling the next day, whether it be a hangover, whether it be tension in the body, etc., whether it be digestive, bowel movement changes, recognizing those changes and having the awareness of it. You don't have to feel guilty. You don't have to kind of punish yourself. But I think just understanding the function of your body and the build up to it. So, for example, the next time that you have emotional stress, feeling the stress in your spine, the changes that takes place around your scalp, maybe waking up feeling like you've created tension in your jaw, and recognizing the fact that we're never going to be perfect in life. I always say to people, when we get amazing results with people at Human Health, and within the first few weeks, people are experiencing those results, and then I'll say to them, I'll be like, would you like any care further from here? If they want to continue into more of a lifestyle path of having chiropractic or using chiropractic within their health sphere, of ways in which they maintain and promote their health throughout their life, because we're never going to be perfect. And these stresses, I say the two things that are never going away: one's gravity and one's stress. Gravity is always going to be acting down on us as an essential physical force, or form of physics, and there's different stresses that we've been discussing. They're never going away. So the
Yeah,
better that we can adapt to them, and the more that we can allow the intelligence within us to express
yeah,
itself and to kind of bounce to it, the better. And that's really what chiropractic is.
you're right, and you said exactly right. I'm glad you said that, because a lot of people, we have this misconception that stress is a bad thing or that we can reduce stress.
Yeah.
It's an
Yeah. So
absolutely
let's talk about
ridiculous
stress as a
notion.
good thing.
Yeah, so I mean, stress is a good thing, but also it's something that we just cannot get rid of, and we shouldn't try. So again, I said I work with the police and fire service. You go and talk to the police force, you say, reduce your stress. It makes no sense. It makes zero sense. How can you tell a police officer who's out on duty at night, chasing someone with a knife, that they should reduce their stress? It just makes no sense. The way we achieve health is to build a body that is more adaptable to the stress and understand that stress is never going to go away. But if we can adapt to it, the stress won't become something that breaks us down. It's something that helps build us up.
Yeah.
So it's understanding that stress doesn't need to be got rid of. It needs to be adapted to and understood. And then it's about creating habits within your life that help you adapt to stress.
Yeah.
And
So do you think that it's
chiropractic
quite
adjustments
quite
are one.
common that when people actually start going on a bit of a health bandwagon, they might see a chiropractor, they might improve their diet. It can be really overwhelming, because I think as soon as you open your awareness up to different things in life, whether it be looking at your diet, your emotions, and your physical body, and what you could be doing for yourself, especially in this information age where it's coming from YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and stuff, it's really overwhelming, and it can put a lot of pressure on you.
Yeah,
And you don't have to do it all. And I think understanding those fundamental basics is key, but also being aware of the fact you can't coop yourself up in a perfect environment. I'll be the first to say that, I'm far from perfect. I know my philosophy, I know my beliefs, I know the science behind it, the way I like to live. And I do have a construct, a way that I would like to improve my own health. But, knowing what we do through the education that we've had, if we were to hold ourselves to that kind of high tier, it's kind of unachievable.
really
So I think,
unachievable. And I suppose we go through it's a process of slipping and checking and understand that you do good and then you slip off, but you recheck. But in terms of overhauling health, one of the reasons people fail is because they do overhaul their health and they'll naturally gravitate back towards where they are comfortable. So I like to think of it like this. All you need to do is take a small little change over a long enough period of time. So if you take a small change over a long enough period of time, that's what will change the body. So there's a couple of things we need to understand. To create change in the human body, it takes at least 18 months. It's 18 months for the whole human body to reorganize itself. So you can't do anything quicker than that. You just can't. So if you go to someone and they say, I'm going to fix you in less than 18 months, well, they're not going to fix you. They're going to help you feel better, but the process takes 18 months. And then you think about, well, okay, so it takes that long. I can't possibly do so much big drastic change for that long period of time. Think of this. If you've ever been walking, when you go walking, you take a compass bearing and you set your bearing for 2 miles. And if you set it perfectly right, as you walk along that trajectory, you will hit your target. If you set that compass bearing just 2 millimeters off, just 2 millimeters, and you walked over a mile, you would completely miss your target. So you see the effects that we have in terms of small little changes to our health. If we take that over a long enough period of time, the change will be exponential. So I say to people, all you need to do is focus on 3 simple areas. My favorite number is 3: thoughts, traumas, and toxins. That's all you need to focus on. And the beautiful thing is, it begins with my favorite letter of the alphabet, which is most probably yours because it begins with the first letter of my name, Tom. Thoughts, traumas, and toxins. The 3 T's. It's super, super simple. Am I doing something every day that has a positive benefit on thoughts, traumas, and toxins? Thoughts. Wake up in the morning, think about 3 things you're grateful for. That's all you need to do. Wake up in the morning, think about 3 things you're grateful for. Trauma. Move your body every single day. A 10-minute walk is all you need to do. Thoughts, traumas, toxins. Am I making conscious decisions about the food that I choose to take in? Or am I making a stress-based decision? You could start with simply saying, well, I'm just going to drink a pint of water within the first hour of the morning. Simple, simple little steps. And I know there's a lot more that you can do, but even if you just did those 3 things, those tiny 3 things over 18 months, it would dramatically change the physiology of your body and set up your health for the future.
So from the stress, those are the things that people can be doing, those simplistic things. The stresses that we're going through every day, so the postures that we have, the emotional stresses, etc., they're being translated by our brain as challenges, and the challenges express themselves physically. Okay, you might have a habit where you want to drink more coffee because you feel tired, low energy, eat more sugar for a similar reason, etc., or drink more alcohol. But actually, all these physical stresses start to build up in our body. Now, let's head back into the chiropractic side of things. So, because I always try and make this conversion for people, because they're like, okay, yeah, I've got this in my body. I can realize that things have happened. But if you experience that stressor, it creates the tension, a particular vertebra in the lower back, because you've been sat down and you've been stressed, starts to tense up. That may express itself as a physical subluxation or a change in adaptation in the spine. Let's talk about the chiropractic side of things. So how are we going to view that as a chiropractor? What are the various ways in which people can then get that adjusted, the different types of techniques, the way it might be looked at? And if you are a member of the public, how can you then start to translate it from change of that and getting that thing sort of maybe helped out more intensively, and then actually starting to look after yourself more in the future?
Yeah, so, you can't separate the brain and the body. I refer to the human body as the body-mind. It's one whole thing. So even simple, if we're going through life and we're getting emotional stress, everybody knows that if you're stressed, your shoulders get tense and your shoulders get tight. And that's going to create tension and discomfort and changes within the spine. If you're sat for a long period of time and you're eating bad foods, it's going to stress your digestive system. And the nerves that supply the majority of the digestive system are coming from your lower back. So it's going to create issues and strains and changes in your lower back. So your spine will always be a reflection of how your environment, your internal environment is working. So if you are feeling discomforts and stresses, it's not just a little twinge or a little strain most of the time. It's actually your body telling you something's not right. So the most important thing to understand is that if I'm feeling anything for my spine, I should get it checked by someone who knows what they're doing. And then I would say, if you're going to go and see someone or seek help, find someone who's going to ask the better questions. If you're going to go and see, a chiropractor, my practice is called Epoch Lincoln. Epoch means definitive period in the history of somebody's life. I don't call my place a chiropractic center because everybody's got their ideas of what a chiropractor is and what a chiropractor isn't. So I would, it doesn't matter who you see, so long as they're asking the right questions. And so long as they understand, or I would find someone who holds you accountable to your own health and asks the better questions as to why you've got the problem in the first place. Yeah. And then I would go with whatever technique or whatever care they decide to provide and trust them in that process.
Yeah. And from a chiropractic point of view, whatever technique you're using, let's just take one of the techniques you're using, for example, Tom. If a vertebra is subluxated and out, when you adjust it, I think a lot of people just think it seems so simplistic, right? We train so much. We have an education of 5 years to get a doctor of chiropractic, master of chiropractic, and every step people say, when is it scary the first time you adjust someone? And yeah, I'll be honest. I think the first time I adjusted someone, it was a lady's neck when I went into the internship practice that we were both in. And, was I scared? I think a little bit, not because of what I was doing and I might hurt her, more actually because I just really wanted to help her. And the reality is the skill's broken down so much. But what I just wanted to dive into with you is the science of what's going on behind the adjustment. So whatever technique you're using, and there's going to be different styles, different philosophies behind it, and a slightly different science, but a lot of it is the same. Because I think it's important that people actually know that there's so much value that happens within the brain that happens so quickly before a very specific and delicate adjustment is delivered that's going to help someone. And I would love to dive into it, but I'm going to give that one to you too.
So Yeah, it's again. I said you know, hammer and a nail. It's not when you're adjusting the spine. It's not. It's a dance. You know, it's an
Yeah.
art. Um, we have all this science and this understanding of the spine. We have our philosophy, which directs us to the spine to help somebody. But we have an art, and that art is the dance that we have with the spine. So we're not forcing a body to change. We can't put a bone back in place. We can encourage a body to move through a process of adaptation, as we spoke about before, and change. And that adaptation and change happens within the brain. So I say to someone, if you're gonna start care with me, I want you to think of, if I gave you a violin, beautiful violin that you've never played before, and you wanted to pick it up and become a master, there are two things that you need to do. You need to practice and repeat. Time and repetition. Time and repetition is what creates change. So
Yeah.
when we come in to adjust and move the spine, we have this science that we know how the spine should work and we know how the spine should move. But over the years that we've been doing this, we create this art that allows us to come in and gently encourage the body into the position that it should be in. And it's
And
that
is that a
gentle
forced
repetition.
position, like you say? Is it a bone going back into place, crack back in? Because I think
No,
this is always a nice thing I like to explain to people.
no, you know, bones do move sometimes when you adjust them for sure. But
Yeah.
when you're adjusting, what's happening really is you're creating a huge, huge stimulus in that part of the body. And by huge stimulus, I don't mean a really physical, painful one. I mean that in the brain, it's registered as a big change. So the brain wakes up to that area of the body and will relearn how it should hold that in place in space and time.
Yeah.
So noises that are made when you make the adjustment are simply, you know, escapes of negative pressure of gases from the area of the spine. Clicks and pops, perfectly normal.
Yeah.
Um, but it's the influence on what sits within the spine. We have to remember that the spine is protecting our spinal cord, the nerves. It's the influence that we have on that area that is creating the biggest change. So the biggest change that happens is in the brain.
Yeah.
You know, if I was to pinch you on your forearm, where would you feel the pain? And most people would say, well, it's on my forearm. Well, actually, you're registering the pain right here in your brain. You know, if I was to kick you in the shin, where would you feel the pain? You go, oh, my shin. Well, actually, no, it's up here in the brain.
Mm.
So every time we adjust the spine and move the spine, we're registering something in the brain to then coordinate how the spine is working. That goes right back to what I said at the start. It's this symbiotic relationship between how the body is moving, telling the brain to work, and how the brain is working, telling the body to move. Chicken and the egg, really, they have to work together, and we don't really know what came first.
Yeah, exactly. And you can adjust the same thing on the same person and get a different result because of the reasons and the why, like you said, of why that person's adapted. What was the cause before the adaptation took place? And that's why the experience can be different. But
For
Tom,
sure.
I've had amazing experience. Like, so from a personal point of view, I love chiropractic because what it's done to me. I mean, when I set up Human Health and we stripped back this center, you know, just under 2,000 square feet and started to rebuild it, and I was working full time at the same time. Um, it was intense. And at the time, someone was looking after me, and I was getting checked every week. I didn't have an issue. I didn't have any pain symptoms. And I'll be honest, even though I'd studied, even though I'd been getting adjusted since I was about 18 years old when I went to university, that was the first time for me that it really changed my life because I was in a state, a chosen state. So you talked before about stress being good. Everything that was giving me stress, I loved. You know, I'd had a dream to open up, you know, design and open up a business that I'd worked on for 2.5 years, and I was doing it. But when you put yourself in that fire and in that pressure, as you know, with what you've created, and anyone would know that's set up or running any business, it's intense. And then when I do like performance work with people and consulting, so I say, you know, making sure that your brain is adapting and performing when you're in a state of pressure, because we know it's not permanent. It's going to be a kind of ephemeral or transient period of time. And getting checked every week through that period of time for 6 months seriously helped me adapt physically and mentally to it. But I've also had incredible experiences in practice, you know, from babies. You know, the second person I ever saw in practice was a 3-day-old baby. And actually, it's really weird. I'm getting shivers down my spine saying this because I've had a similar experience with my own son, Frederick, recently. But so go back to the basics. So second, I was an intern in practice. You remember it well. We've got our tutors coming in, observing you, making sure you're following, doing everything perfectly. Now, although we've done a hell of a lot of study over the 5 years, and we've practiced on each other, we haven't practiced on babies, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The models. We
Yep.
were blessed at the time, and I know you did, to have an amazing tutor and professor in Joyce Miller that sort of educated us on pediatrics. And it was something that I was really passionate about and wanted to understand a lot more about how I could help infants and pregnant ladies too. And it's something I enjoy doing now. And this mum brought a 3-day-old son in whose head, through the birth trauma of using forceps in the birth delivery, was held over and completely, what we call torticollis. And the head was stuck to one side. And I was thinking to myself, even though you know what to do, you're suddenly, and she was near in tears, like, please help me. So I've got Joyce looking over me like, you know what to do. And I just remembered the fear, but also the peace that I had, knowing that something so safe and simple and effective that I could do was going to help help change the path of this baby's life. And literally, it was my first kind of, what do you call it, miracle, good experience, whatever, of chiropractic, because within the 2 or 3 adjustments I gave him that week, he was completely free. And he developed, it's funny, the next week he came back in, and the mum freaked out because he had a fibroid tumor, which is basically just a congealed bit of blood that was sticking out through the muscles as a result of the trauma. And I'm thinking, imagine if nothing had happened and he had just stayed there and that had happened, what he would have had to have gone on to do. And what they were talking about was surgery. They would have had to have actually freed the muscle by cutting it, and then surgically reattaching it. Now, you and I both know what that's going to do to that person's structure as gravity's acting down on them throughout their life is huge. And the reason why I relate that to today is because just 12 weeks ago, when my son Frederick was born, through a long story that I won't go into, what started out with a beautiful home birth, we had a couple of changes that led to a very traumatic and long delivery, unfortunately for my other half, Georgie, and a C-section, an emergency C-section in the end, which, we're blessed because they were both healthy and well at the end. I thought Fred was going to go straight to G as she was coming up out of the surgery, but actually he came into me. So I'm pulling my hair out in this room, thinking that, I've just signed a bit of form to say I might have just lost both of them. And when am I going to see him, if at all, hoping that I could just go down and check if they're both okay. And next thing, he gets wheeled in and he's like this. It's just really ironic that the first thing I got to do to my son, other than bawling my eyes out, cuddling him and kissing him, was adjust him straight away too. So tell us, and everyone always, you're probably the same. I could write a book on the experience that I've had in all demographics of the population with chiropractic and working with people as we've been talking about today. Share a couple of yours with us too, because, I know you've got some good ones.
Wow. You know what? I think the best, we've got these amazing stories, and it's beautiful to see babies change, and it's extraordinary to be able to take care of your own child. But some of the best ones for me are as simple as, I remember this lady, she's been seeing me for years now, and she first came back after a couple of weeks of care, and she said, I was able to sit down and play with my grandkids for a couple of hours. And she hadn't been able to sit down and play with her grandkids ever, which is just extraordinary. It's something as simple as that is life-changing emotionally for people, but it's not necessarily sexy for chiropractors. So chiropractors shy away from talking about those ones. But how much that would have changed her life, but also the interactions that she had with her grandchildren, the memories that would have made, is extraordinary. So we mustn't gloss over the fact that whether someone's coming in with discomfort or someone's coming in with developmental delay or, conception struggling, it's all beautiful when people forget their full expression of life. I mean, I used to have a nickname being the chiropractor. Go on.
I was going to say, from a professional point of view, that just really connects with me, just to say to people, if you're a professional chiropractor, whatever you are, don't just focus, take into consideration the symptoms and the physical cause, but looking at the why and those causes, to actually just focus on that and be respectful, without the ego of what that person's going to go through as those adaptations and changes in their physical structure start to be removed.
Yeah.
You know, I had a similar experience a few months ago. A lady that I was working with that was going on a long cycling, what do you call it, race in Italy, and she was preparing for it and had some pelvic issues. Had some, you know, someone referred her in. You got some pelvic issues, back pain. Go and see Tom. She had some great results with that, and then we talked about lifestyle care. And she really enjoyed just getting adjusted and how it felt. She was a really quiet lady, and we did a review. You know, I recommend that to any chiropractors. I know you do them too, Tom, just to check in and review with people every so often. And we did a review with her, and I said, "What's your biggest change been?" And in my head, I'm thinking, you shouldn't help but guess, but I'm thinking she's probably going to say she had some amazing physical changes with the way her muscle power was coming back, and her performance in cycling was going through the roof. And I was thinking, gosh, she's going to say that. She didn't. She said, you know what? She nearly kind of started crying. She said, my marriage has got better. My marital relationship has got back on track. And I was shocked. And I was thinking, did she misunderstand the question? Even though I know what we're talking about. And
Yeah.
it's exactly kind of what you're just saying, was actually just to respect the mental side of things, that for her, since she'd be coming in, having her interferences removed and subluxations adjusted, her experience of her body was so much better. She felt so much freer, so much more connected to herself. Her mindset was calmer. She told me she felt a better version of herself to bring to her marriage. She was a lot calmer and less ratty with her husband. And as a result, you know, he was different too.
You're right. It's because it's just trying to impress our opinions upon somebody else. It's that judgment. And we have to accept in life, everybody's on a completely different journey. And all we can do is be an energetic input into their life to try and improve it. But the most beautiful thing you can do in life is to give your gift and detach yourself from any outcome. So again, we should do these reviews in our practice to see how people are getting on and help them check in. But sometimes it turns into an ego game. How great are you doing? How much have I improved you? Whereas we really should put our input into somebody else's life and detach ourselves from the outcome. Be so certain in what we do that it will make it a benefit to them, congruently deliver that and follow it, and then just allow the outcome to happen. So we have these people who get out of pain, and that it changes their business life, it changes their emotional life, their financial life, their family life. Then we have kids who've never spoken start to speak again. You know, we have kids who've been pulled out of school and put in special education, put back into normal education. Couples that have struggled to conceive for years to start to conceive. And when you start to go into this, people start to think, oh, wow, you guys are amazing. What are you doing? It's crazy. And other people go, what's witchcraft? And what the hell are you talking about? But it's the simple fact that we are just trying to improve someone's expression of life. And we're simply trying to give people the tools to do that, deliver the energy that we have, whether it's a physical adjustment or a being, to allow that process to manifest and happen itself. And the miracles are always there, whether they are tiny little ones in our perception of the world or grand dramatic changes in our perception of the world.
That's really nice, Tom. You know, I'm respectful of your time too, and the time that we've got. So we've got a few minutes really that would work well, if that's okay for you.
It's fine.
What I'd love to just touch on is healthcare coming through this pandemic. And, you know, I've seen a very small handful of people doing some emergency appointments, as I know you have too. And something which I've been aware of just through talking to people is their consciousness of health and actually their awareness. And I've been noticing this online too, and on our clients that have been emailing us and keeping in touch on the phone, that there seems, and it's a very small pilot of people that I'm looking at, and so I just wanted to speak to you and ask you too, there's a consciousness happening in people's reflection of health. Are you aware of that too?
Yeah, and it's true, and I would just reframe it. Instead of healthcare coming through this crisis, it's self-care.
Definitely.
It's understanding that whatever's happening, no one's going to be there to save you. People are wanting to take control of their own health, which I find beautiful. Health, it's really interesting. It's solely driven, as in it's driven by oneself, but it's also community driven. And you need that community. Humans are pack animals. We're designed to contribute towards a herd that releases a whole load of endorphins and chemical changes within our body. So what's been really nice through this whole thing is that communities have actually, although a lot of it's online at the moment, have started to come together. Families have started to come together, which has been brilliant. People are questioning the status quo in terms of healthcare and understanding that they need to take advantage for that themselves. So I see a brilliant opportunity for the health of humanity moving forwards. I really do, because I know that that's going to really start with a conscious shift in the mind, an appreciation for what we have in the moment, that will allow us to enjoy our experience as we move forward. And well, not everyone, but the majority of us being forced to slow down has increased our appreciation of the moment that we have right now. And I think that's the biggest thing that is changing as we move forward out of this whole thing.
And have you noticed how, I've had a lot of reflections myself. It's been an incredible time, both professionally and personally, to just, like you just said, just focus back on what's most important, as I'm sure, I know a lot of people have that I've spoken to. How do you think that's going to shift people's perception, or how can people start to focus on their self-care differently? I know for a time period, people aren't, whether we might have been flying off on summer holidays, buying new things coming into this, whether it be a financial outlook or just actually being held back geographically because you can't move in the same way, as well as just the shock and wake-up call of the fact that, people have been fearful that a virus may take over and negatively impact their health significantly. What do you think people can start to choose to focus on or start to become self-aware of, if they haven't already through the last few weeks, that would drastically change, the onward outcome of their health and their life?
Yeah, I think one of the benefits that's happened with this whole thing is it's gone on for so long. So people have exhausted the initial hysteria and been caught up in the drama, which has meant that they have then stopped and focused on self. The thing that people can do, and the simplest way to start focusing on self is, as easy as it sounds, to focus on self, but we have to do it at a very specific time of the day. So the only way that we can really start to change how we think about ourselves, how our body processes and how our body works emotionally, is within a very short time frame where our brainwave states are in what we call alpha and theta. So when we're sleeping, we have a brainwave state, and when we're fully awake, we have a brainwave state. But transitioning between those two is this beautiful window of alpha and theta brainwave states. What's beautiful about that is we are so susceptible and so receptive in that time. Unfortunately, what we currently do is we look for outside influences. So for example, when you wake up in the morning and your brain is moving from its closed state to its awake state through alpha and theta, when you're most suggestible, most of us will pick up the phone, scroll through social media, turn on the news, look at the news, or think to ourselves, I can't be bothered, it's Monday. And all three of those things are putting a negative stimulus into our mind and into our consciousness. The simplest thing we can do to move out of this whole situation, to really bulletproof ourselves, is to guard that sacred time, that first 30 to 60 minutes of the morning, when our brain is moving from asleep to awake, when our brainwave states are in alpha and theta, when we are most suggestible to the world around us, is to fill it with good, positive, and intentional action. And the three simple things that I get people to do with that is to hydrate straight away, have some water. Your body's dehydrated, so you rehydrate, you're going to get your brain firing. We spoke about how important the brain was earlier. The second thing that I do would move. I said earlier, as the body moves, the brain grooves. As the body moves, the brain grooves. So all you need to do is march on the spot or walk up and down the stairs a few times. But now you're getting your brain pumping, your brain registering, your body starting to fire up, and you haven't had to break a sweat yet. And then you sit with thought. Before you go ahead and journal or write your affirmations, or what we're told to go, 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 is you just sit with thought. The beautiful thing about sitting with thought at that time in the morning is that you're very suggestible. When you sit with thought at that time in the morning, you hear your thought. So we bastardize our own thought as the subconscious, but actually I like to refer to it as the superconscious. It sits above our conscious brain. Our conscious brain is what's telling us, like, we're having this conscious conversation right now. The subconscious is controlling how your body is functioning, how your body is moving, how your immune system is working, how your heart is functioning. Your subconscious is working while you're asleep and while you're awake. It's better than the conscious, so why are we calling it the subconscious? So therefore it's the superconscious. And I do believe that the superconscious steps up to another level beyond our consciousness. And if we take the time while our brain is suggestible in the morning just to sit and listen to what comes to us, it'll be something that is transcending through that. And I believe that is our truest expression of what we should be doing in life, and we should be listening to that thought. Once we've listened to that thought, we then tell ourselves what we want, and that's the affirmations that everybody is pretty much aware of. And then when our brain becomes fully awake, we've already set the tone that we want it to be at for the day. You cannot change how you consciously perceive the world or how you want things to go when your brain is fully awake. And if you spend that first time in the morning filling it with negativity, your expression of life will be a negative one. So how can we move out of this? Would simply be listen to self, with the caveat that you've got to do that at the right time of the day or it will make no difference at all. And I think if we all took that time to be still, to be quiet, and to really attune ourselves with our truest purpose, that's when we'll get a massive change in humanity.
Nice, Tom. Really like those reflections. Thank you. So let's just, between the two of us, conclude just some takeaways from the call then. You know, kicking off with spinal health and the brain things, you know, we touched on the fact that your spine is so much more than just a scaffolding that's holding up against gravity. The interconnected nature of all the different bits of anatomy which are making up the spine and connection with the brain, the communication that's happening between the brain and body. The fact that a cause becomes adaptation or creates adaptations in our body. We as chiropractors recognize those as subluxations, which we adjust. As a chiropractor, or many practitioners, we're not focusing on symptoms and looking to treat it and cure it, but just to facilitate the change of adaptations so the body can experience itself and communicate with itself better. Go on, Tommy, you carry on.
And then it moves into the realm of self-help and how we can maximize our expression of life. When we want to get some help from somebody else, find someone who's going to ask the better questions. He's going to ask us why. Find that person who's going to keep us accountable to us being the ones who create change, not telling us that they can fix us. Mm-hmm. And think about creating habits that you can keep and can last for a long period of time. Yeah. And then we talked about, well, how can we actually make a difference today? And the way we can start to make a difference today is to really self-reflect and commit to bringing the truest version of you forward to the world. And
just knowing that it's impossible for that to be a permanent state. So self-awareness is key to coming back home and coming back to just being human, which is what this is all about.
Absolutely.
Tom, thanks so much for your time, mate. Always a pleasure to talk to you.
Absolute pleasure.
And have an amazing weekend. Send my love to Sarah.
I will do. And you guys, and you know, as soon as we can get on the plane, we'll be able to Jersey. Sarah might be able to swim